accountant. And so I jumped right in with him and just started preparing so much. Now, you got to remember, my first 2 years at K-State, no winning games. In 1987 and 88, Stan Parrish was the head coach. No wins. One tie in 88 against Kansas. So Mitch and I got this philosophy. One, we like preparing, but two, Mitch said, we're not here to badmouth our team. We're going to tell the truth. We're not going to make up stuff. We're not going to make excuses for them. But when our guy gets buried at the line of scrimmage because our defensive end gets crushed, we can say how our defensive end isn't good enough, or we can talk about how good the guy across the field is.
Right.
But we need to know him as well or better than the guys who are doing their games. And that's how we just went crazy in preparation. So when that tackle beat our defensive end, we would talk about, this is second-team All-American for Nebraska, and he's playing his high-level football. He could be probably a first- or second-round draft pick. Well, we would talk about him, where he's from, his history, and not waste a lot of time bad-mouthing our guy when they're dancing in the end zone. So we went 2 years without winning a game, and I haven't let up, and Mitch hasn't let up. I don't know why we prepare so much, because we love it, and it's just kind of normal for us. He taught me. I'm into it. So if you think about it, of all the stuff I do, you know how it works, Danny. You let the game breathe. You let it speak to you. You're over-prepared. Everyone jokes about it. But I probably use, 1, 2, 5% of anything that I prepare.
Right.
But it's just fun, and especially for me, because I still have a regular job. So every time I go into the broadcast world, when I'm talking to you now or any time else, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I mean, that's Danny Klinkskills just right over here by me. How's that happening, So that enthusiasm makes it easy for me to just dive in and want to prepare. But it probably started because Mitch is so good, he wants to do it, but we had to prepare to know about the other team.
Well, now it's about time. And what's your family life like as you're starting off as a young man?
I met my wife in 1982, and so we dated, and no hiccups there. We really enjoyed each other and dated seriously for the rest of my college time. She went ahead and got a master's degree that took 2 years, so that let me go to Kansas City. We're still dating, but she was in Manhattan getting her second degree in psychology, and I was working for 2 years, and when she came out, I asked her to marry me. So we actually got married on June 27th, 1987, and I started broadcasting my first time for K-State in September of 87. So it just all came together at the same time. I'd already accepted the K-State announcing job, so when we got married, there was no, hey, what about our personal time? How are we going to do this or that? It was game on. It was just our life. And obviously our children, first one coming 3 years later in 1990, our oldest daughter, Brittany, who's 29 years old as we speak today, they know no better, but even Nancy and I, as a married couple, knew no better. We were hardly living together, and it was time to start heading back to Manhattan and going to games.
Do you remember how you asked her to marry her?
Well, I definitely do.
Good answer.
Well, no, Danny,
good answer that you remember.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely remember, because Danny, you know me, and maybe people do know me out there in the world. I am like the most boring guy in the world. Okay, there's a spectrum, right, Danny? You got the spectrum. You get along with a lot of people. I hope I do as well. But when you reach your spectrum out, however wide you can reach, you probably start over there with Stan Weber on the boring side, and so you'll understand where I'm coming from. I over near Metcalf and 70th Street or wherever is Queen of the Holy Rosary Church. So I go to Mass on a Sunday morning, and Nancy's in town. She lives in Manhattan, but she's in town. And so Mass ends, and people start heading out the door, and I kneel down and start praying, which is fine. But, I mean, it takes a minute or so. I'm waiting for the people to clear out. Nancy kind of elbows me like, are we going to go? And I'm sitting there, okay, they're gone. I turn to her on my knee and say, will you marry me?
Wow.
So
I don't think I've ever heard of anybody proposing to someone in church.
That's for me, that is 100% the right place. It was no doubt about it where else should be. It was kind of weird. It wasn't like a midday, drink a little wine and slip in there. It was right after 9 o'clock Mass or whatever time it was. I just let the people clear out, and
there you go.
And asked her to marry me, and it went right on from there.
Well, you mentioned that your first child was born in 1990. Well, K-State was reborn about 1990, 89 actually, when Bill Snyder came to town. I think we visited on this story before on some maybe just personal level or maybe on the radio. I don't even know. But you were pretty much right off the bat right all in with Bill Snyder, that you thought that this horrendous football program at that time, maybe the worst in the history of college football in the context of then, Kansas has given it a run in the last few years, but it could be risen from the dead.
Yeah, there's really two aspects to that, Danny, because I was recently named to the Goddard High School Hall of Fame, back in Wichita. And so they wanted to see all these scrapbooks, and I gave them everything, dug it out. But I read something that's very relevant here. They were talking to me in 1987 or 88, and the Manhattan Mercury interviewed me, and you'll be surprised. I'll show you, Danny. I can show you, but can't tell everyone here. I basically said there's no reason why K-State can't win. This is before Bill Snyder. There's no reason why K-State can't win. People are allowing their expectations to be too low. I don't understand why people don't expect to win and work to win. And it's kind of funny how I call out what before Bill Snyder. Now let's jump to the story. That was I'm just goal number 12 for Bill Snyder of his goals, right, is no self-limitations. And I truly believe that. I mean, why can't we have first place? Why can't we win? I mean, you and I, why can't we do a Super Bowl someday? Yeah, we're a little old and we're not probably. But when I broadcast, I say, who knows? Maybe they'll tap us on the shoulder and everyone's sick in the world, and they say, Danny, you and Stan go do the game. So I did believe it could happen anywhere, but the expectations need to change. Back to the real story. Bill Snyder comes in 1989, and the first time, I'm living here in Kansas City, married, got a lot going on at work. I don't go over to Manhattan, 10 times during two-a-days. I show up and go to the first game, and I believe that's the first time I see K-State practice under Bill Snyder. It's at Arizona State in ASU Stadium Friday night before the game. K-State trots out there and just does a workout, usually just to try to see what the field's like and that kind of thing. Used to be more of a tradition on Friday. You may work out for an hour, like shoot-arounds they do in basketball. Right. Anyway, I'm staying there. Ed O'Donnell, Mitch Holt is standing next to me, and we watch, and 10 minutes in, I go, we're going to win. And they looked at me like I was the craziest guy they've ever seen. And I kind of was doing the old look in the mirror like, what did I just say? What did I just say? Who could possibly say that? We had broadcast for 2 years, 22 games together, and we hadn't had one win. Not against Austin Peay. Against nobody. And I'm saying, we're going to win. And they looked, and I said, no, you can tell. Every guy, there is such a perfect purpose. There is a reason. What the coaches are doing and what the players are doing. They are not the fastest. They are not the most coordinated, but every action and reaction they had was perfect. I'll give you an example. An uncoordinated second-string tight end runs a 7-yard out, and a quarterback throws in the ball. Just a drill you'd see 1,000 times. Ball bounces off his hands, goes to the ground. Okay, you say they're not good enough. But what that kid did, he didn't put his head down like, crap, I shouldn't have not dropped that one. Or he ran over there, picked up that ball, ran back, tossed it to the right person, got back in line, and act like it didn't happen. Because there was no jacking around. We know Bill Snyder now,
right?
But I could just tell. Even when they couldn't execute what they were supposed to, there's no crying. There's no, I'm looking back, or I'm not good enough, or here we go again. Everything they did had a purpose, and I was like, whoa, no doubt about it. We are going to win. Now, what I thought winning meant was go to a bowl game. We'd only been to one in our history, 1982, when I was a player there, and Jim Dickey was the coach, the only bowl in K-State history. So when I said we're going to win, I was talking 6, maybe 7 one time while Bill Snyder's here. That he blew through that is incredible. But, yeah, I before K-State ever played a game under Bill Snyder, I could just tell things were different, and they weren't just different from losers. They were being done at the highest level.
You said that you didn't think that people should put those kind of limitations, but it almost seems like it took an unbelievably obsessive and unusual person to do it. Do you think you were right, or do you think that it was just Bill Snyder? Do you think what level of other coach would K-State have needed? I think a truly just competent coach could have failed there, right?
Absolutely, because you were fighting such an uphill battle. There's nothing worse than when you don't have belief with the closest that you have. I can imagine if you had a dream and you were a young married guy, I'm not talking young like 20, but say 35, you knew what was going on in the world, and you came to your spouse and said, I think I ought to give this a shot. I think I really am good at this. And then total doubt. I mean, right there, your spouse, or when you're younger and your parents just go, no chance. Your brothers and sisters, I mean, that is so demoralizing. How can you get any energy? How can you say, the people who know me the best know I don't talk crazy, and they're like, no chance. That's what it was like at K-State, and that's what I was calling out basically in that article was there's no belief here anywhere. So, yes, to answer your question, it did take a Bill Snyder. It wouldn't have been just a good coach. This is not a plug-in, a good coach gets K-State to 7 or 8 wins. Because Stan Parrish actually turned out to be a
pretty
fine
good
coach. He was a big-time offensive coordinator for Michigan.
Right.
And he got run over. I mean, he got rolled in the time he was at K-State 3 seasons. So, no, it was Bill Snyder. It was an unbelievable focus that this will happen, and no one's going to stop me, and was almost upset when anybody didn't believe and just said, get out of my way because we're going to go. It's great. The best reference is Bob Stoops, because Bob is all grown up and a successful coach and everything else. When he talks about the days at K-State and how he knew they were going to win, he said, I couldn't believe how bad it was. I didn't think it would be possible to be this bad in college, yet I knew we were going to win. Never doubted it. That's the Bill Snyder factor. And he had guys like Bob Stoops helping him.
I was going to say.
And it grows up when you think about they went together through 1995. It may have been as great a coaching staff ever. If you don't believe Bill Snyder's the greatest coach ever, fine. I'm not here to argue with you because there's no need to split that hair. He's in the group, okay?
Right.
And then you say he's an offensive genius, unbelievable head coach and organizer and driver and motivator, and Bob Stoops is a defensive genius, young, energetic. Every skill they had, it was not duplicated by the other. It's all additive. They, 1 + 2, and there wasn't any crossover. They believed in themselves. But other than that, everything that was great about Bob Stoops and others like him, and everything that was great about Bill Snyder were all on the same staff. It is incredible how well K-State was coached at that time.
And, of course, K-State got to, by the time you're talking about when Bob Stoops leaves, they have gotten to be a good football program, but not yet a powerhouse football program. So I guess that says even more about Bill Snyder. He loses somebody like Bob Stoops, and you're going to lose good people off of staffs, and then they took it to the next level. Next level question. When did you believe that K-State could actually be a national contender?
I probably didn't think it until Michael Bishop started taking off at the end of 1997. 1996, K-State won the Cotton Bowl, and Brian Cavanaugh was the quarterback. Did a great job. He's his 6th year. People, that 6th year type of player, who had ever heard of it? He was there and quarterbacked the team. Kevin Lockett was good. They lost to BYU. So we were playing at a high level to get to the Cotton Bowl. But still, Nebraska just seemed like one giant step up. Like, talk about us in the top 20, but really not the top 10 yet. But by the time 97 unfolded, a couple things happened. The talent level across the board was intense. The system was in place. It was running like a machine. But the players had not taken things for granted. That's a stage you don't want to get into and happen later. They're still fired up. They're still trying to reach goals. Then Michael Bishop comes in and Bill Snyder changes football. What we know is the Wildcat formation now was named after Bill Snyder by Urban Meyer, who was a coach at Utah and then Florida. He called it the Wildcat because he went to K-State and learned it from Bill Snyder, where you basically have a single wing mentality, snap it back to a guy who runs. Well, Michael Bishop was the quarterback, so you couldn't tell if it was just shotgun or the single wing run game, but he brought quarterback run game in. Bill Snyder got a bad rap toward the end of his first tenure and into his second one that all he is a quarterback run guy. He never ran the quarterback. That was not. He was a total passing quarterback.
Right. Chad May threw the ball all the time and couldn't run at all.
He shotgunned 4 wide receivers and 5 to win with Chad May. When we got here, do you realize in 1989, at Bill Snyder's first year, he passed more than 50% of his time?
In 1989.
Yeah, in trivia. He's like, I'm not going to try to run it against Nebraska and Oklahoma. Let's throw it. But in 1997, with Bishop, he said, the game has gone enough now. The passing game's developed. Let's go take advantage of the fact they're not ready for the quarterback run game, which he just said the same thing I learned back in single wing football in the old days. There's only 11 guys out there, Danny. There's not a lot of new ideas. But Bill Snyder said, bang, let's go. So when I knew that K-State was a national power and was unlimited to what they could do, was December 31st, 1997, Fiesta Bowl. Donovan McNabb, and I don't need to go through a whole list, but you go look it up. Go look up the 97 Syracuse football team and look at how many